It is the third race of the weekend here at Silverstone for the Michelin Ginetta Junior Championship, and finally the sun is shining upon our Ginetta drivers. We've had some very, very trying conditions to deal with this weekend. The atrocious rain of yesterday, a damp track this morning. Now it's turned into a beautiful day. The sun is shining, the temperature is up, and the grid is assembled ahead of their green flag lap and 25 minutes of racing action to complete our Silverstone weekend for the Ginetta Juniors. We've had two races so far, and they've both been fairly different from one another, it must be said. Yesterday's race was cut quite a bit short because of rain, but Freddie Slater came out victorious ahead of Alicia Pawlowski and Charlie Hart. Then, earlier on today, Freddie Slater able to claim another race victory over Hugo Schwarzer and Riza Sirurathoon, but that was after a 5-second track limits penalty for Freddie Slater, which meant that although he won on the road by nearly 5.6 seconds, he won in reality by only just over half a second. And Hugo Schwarzer, after a real challenge on the final lap, he pushed hard to try and close in on the race leader. Just in the end ran out of time, had to settle for second place ahead of Sirurathoon in third. The grid for this race then is based upon that race result, so Freddie Slater gets the pole position alongside Hugo Schwarzer in second position. R Racing ahead of Elite Motorsport, then two more R Racing drivers, Sirurathoon and Leo Robinson, making up the second row of the grid. Leo Robinson has been rapid all weekend long. Alicia Pawlowski, after a spin on the opening lap, has led both of the races so far, but hasn't actually had a race win to show for it. Charlie Hart will start alongside her from sixth position ahead of Mackenzie Douglas and Finn Harrison on the fourth row together. Row 5 then for Mikey Porter and Chase Fernandez, who was involved in a lap 1 collision down at Stowe yesterday. Luca Hopkinson and Edu Robinson together, the Spaniard on the outside of his teammate on row 6. Then it's Freddie Allen and Felix Libsey next together on row 7. Row 8 we'll see Henry Jocelyn. Then we get into those who didn't finish the race earlier on. Harry Moss was retirement at the end of the opening lap, whilst Tom Sprague, Bray Anglis and Holly Mile were all involved in accidents down at the Baggett-Beckett sequence of corners at the start of that race. Now, whether we get them all out there, we'll have to wait and see. You can see there Holly Mile was out on track on the green flag lap. Hopefully we've got a full quota of 19 of these Ginetta G40s ready to do battle in what are, as I said, by far the best conditions that they've faced so far this weekend. We can actually see something now out of the front of Riza Sirurathoon's car. The R Racing driver will start this one from third, has been providing us with some fantastic onboard pictures so far this weekend, but now a much clearer view out of the windscreen of the number 78 car. The other onboard car has been Tom Sprague so far this weekend, and right on cue there is Tom, PrepTech UK Machines. That's answered another one of my questions. Tom Sprague is out on track for this race, which is good news. Wasn't so sure we'd see him after his part in the collision down at Maggots in the earlier race. As I said, there's a strong argument to say that Alicia Pawlowski could have won at least one race so far this weekend. It hasn't quite worked out that way for her though. Getting the lead yesterday at the start from Freddie Slater, she led as far as Stowe, drifted wide whilst defending that lead, and then ended up slipping down into second position, where she would eventually finish after the rain cut the race short. Charlie Hart was third in that race, and then he didn't get a very good start in race number 2 earlier on today, ended up finishing down in 6th place, whilst Alicia Pawlowski got the lead and then went off on a damp patch of circuit through Beckett, spun across the grass, landed back in the middle of the road, miraculously was avoided by everyone, but there was a secondary accident behind her, which is what claimed Harry Moss, Tom Sprague, Bray Anglis and Holly Mile from the race. There was a safety car period. Hopefully we can avoid that in this third race of the weekend. So out of Luffield they come then, this debut weekend on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for the Ginetta Junior drivers. Never raced before on the full layout of Silverstone. But has been part of the SRO British GT package this year. They'll get the opportunity to race on some layouts of circuits that they haven't had the opportunity to before. The Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, for example, will play host to 2 rounds in the championship. That's where we go next, Donington Park. Then they're back at Silverstone for the G-Fest, the Ginetta Festival, between the 1st and 4th of June, where they'll have a whopping 6 races, 2 on the national circuit and 4 on this Grand Prix circuit layout. Then they head to Snetterton in June, Cadwell Park in July, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit in September, and it all concludes at Donington Park in October. So the 5-second board then is shown. We're getting ready to go racing for the final time this weekend in the Michelin Ginetta Junior Championship, and Hugo Schwarzer from the inside of row 1, which is second placed on the grid, gets a really good launch. Now, can he beat Freddie Slater into turn 1 in the way that Alicia Palmovski's been able to in the earlier 2 races? I think he will. There is Palmovski in the yellow and black car on the outside line. They make their way down into Maggott and Beckett's on board with Reza Samurathan here then as he slots in line. It's side by side still for the race lead though. Slater coming back at Schwarzer into Maggott and Beckett. Side by side they will go, and Schwarzer does not want to give this track position up. If he can get in front and take control of the race, he might just have a chance of escaping if Slater ends up battling for second place. He does manage to get the lead away. One car out wide further back. That might have been Finn Harrison in the number 38, but he bounces back on the road, and this time everyone cleanly through the first few corners. Now slipstream time down the back straight. Slater goes to the outside line. 37 is Leo Robinson trying to go up the middle of both of them. There isn't the space. Then he ducks back to the inside again, and Hugo Schwarzer has to try and fend them all off. Through Stoke Corner they head for the first time. Side by side, inches between the door handles. Way wide goes Freddie Slater, who has won every race in the championship so far this year, and they will now be 3 wide down into the club chicane, because diving up the inside almost went Leo Robinson. He thought twice about that though, and Schwarzer and Slater will continue to debate the lead between themselves. It's a sea of Elite Motorsport and R Racing cars at the front of the field. 3 of the silver R Racing machines, 3 of them. Charlie Hart is one of the silver cars, but he runs for Elite. 3 wide again now, past the wing, and this time it is going to be full commitment from Leo Robinson up the inside line into Abbey Corner. He hits the front now, so from third to first in one move, and 3 different drivers have had a stint in the lead already on this opening lap. Can Reza Samurathan make that 4 drivers? He's certainly going to try. Onto the brakes they go, round the outside goes Freddie Slater. There isn't the space for all of them. They're leaning on each other. Samurathan is elbowed out wide by somebody. Palmovski joining in up the inside. There goes the number 19. That was Mikey Porter from 9th on the grid. Mikey Porter is suddenly battling for the race lead, and finally it had to go wrong eventually, and 2 cars have got around. Now, one of those is Adu Robinson, number 51. The other, I think, was number 38, Finn Harrison, but we'll double check that when they get to the line. Down towards Brooklands for the first time. Robinson leads the way. Charlie Hart dives to the outside line now, and Freddie Slater finds himself down in third, which is about as low down the order as he's been all year long. Tries to do something about that by getting to the inside of Hart through Brooklands, but there just isn't the space. And well, finally we're being treated to some proper Ginetta Junior action. This is exactly what I was hoping we'd see out of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, and now in ideal racing conditions they are putting on the show that we knew they were all capable of. Schwarzer, the big loser out of all of that, then he's plummeted down the order, battling there with Mackenzie Douglas and Chase Fernandez. Across the line they will head then into Copse Corner. Was Harrison, by the way, who tangled with Adu Robinson at the loop that time, but they're both going to come through, albeit somewhat delayed at the end of the opening lap. Down towards Maggott and Beckett we go on board with Tom Spragg. We are sitting in 12th position for the time being, and just ahead of us that is Henry Jocelyn. The leader is still Leo Robinson though, but Charlie Hart trying to find an overlap, trying to get to the outside of him into the final sequence of the final corner of the Beckett sequence. Drifts a little bit wide there, does the race leader. Not quite as wide as one of the R Racing cars in the background though. Who was that heading for the spectator area? Thankfully bouncing back on the road though, that was Hopkinson, wasn't it? Luca Hopkinson, number 48, with the pink highlights to the front of his machine. Leaders down at Stoke Corner again then, and still Leo Robinson trying to defend from everybody. They're side by side briefly. Who's that running wide? That was Charlie Hart running wide. Freddie Slater, I think, will come through into second place, and now challenges for the race lead. Down onto the brakes at Vale. On board again with Samurathan. Grandstand view of this, but really nowhere to go, is there? And in fact, he had Hugo Schwarzer up the inside. So Schwarzer picks the pocket of Reza as they turn through the left-hander there. He's down to 6th, he's down to 7th, because now someone else comes up the inside. That's Alicia Palmovski, one of the 3 female racers we've got on the grid. This is like it's like a race at Talladega, isn't it? Not Silverstone. Proper slipstreaming, pack racing, nobody able to escape from anybody else. I've always said the Ginetta Junior racing is like the 4-wheeled equivalent of 125cc motorcycle racing. You just get this big pack of cars jockeying for position corner by corner. I think that's Slater back in the lead now as Reza Samurathan just can't catch a break. Everywhere he goes, he's getting overtaken left, right and centre, getting knocked completely out of his rhythm. Charlie Hart out wide, just ahead of them as well, but Slater leads the way, and might he now be able to build a bit of a cushion over the rest of the field? If he can, then he breaks the toe, and that might be enough for a relatively easy run to the victory. On board with Tom Spragg then, side-by-side action going on ahead of us as we try to get to the inside line. You can see that slipstream taking effect, a bit of bump drafting going on now as he gives the bumper to the car in front. Just as they went into the braking zone though, that might not have been appreciated really. Chase Fernandez is the number 90 car to our right, and the car that was getting the bump was Reza Saburathan, who has dropped right down the order from where he was a lap ago. Out of Luffield corner, Schwarzer now out onto the gravel. Parmovsky up the inside, Charlie Hart as well. But look, you can see the leader now, Freddie Slater, now that he's got out in front, starting to break away. 1 second means that he's almost broken the toe. It is Mikey Porter second, would you believe? Third place, Leo Robinson. Charlie Hart fourth, but with Schwarzer up the inside, that means Parmovsky's gone through. Yes, so Parmovsky into fourth, Schwarzer and Hart battling over fifth positions. As again, that momentum out of Copse Corner, the slipstream, bringing them all back together. They are 3 wide. I don't think that Hugo Schwarzer knew they were 3 wide there, and he came across the bows of Charlie Hart. Thankfully, they avoided contact, and the number 90 of Chase Fernandez also bailed out of that one too. Back on board with Spragg, and again, we'll see now that slipstream take effect down the hanger straight, although he doesn't get a very good exit from the corner. Despite that, though, by the time we get to the bridge, we should start to see that gap perhaps creeping down. Well, no, it really wasn't a very good exit, was it, onto the long hanger straight. Even the best slipstream in the world won't benefit him here, and he might find himself losing out on a position maybe as they turn into Stowe. No, he's able to come across and take the apex, so there's no one at the inside of him for now. In the sectors, by the way, Sector 1, Porter and Robinson, I suspect, working together, are gaining on the race leader. So Freddie Slater managing to hold on to the advantage, but it's a decreasing advantage. He was about 4/10 slower than Porter and Robinson in Sector 1. Sector 2 time will come up very shortly, and actually that time around 3/10 quicker than Porter, so no real gain so far. But you can see how Porter and Robinson are definitely working together. Both of them, again, are racing drivers, so they're 3 teammates out at the front of the field for the time being, with Parmovsky, the first of the elite drivers, in fourth. Desperately late on the brakes there, Parmovsky under pressure. There's a car on the grass in the background, but Parmovsky losing out now to a resurgent Reza Saburathan. And then Mackenzie Douglas, the blue car, pulling to the outside as well as they turn into the loop for the 3rd time. Out of the left-hander, through the left-hand kink at Aintree, easy flat out in these cars. And then down the Wellington Straight where Sector 3 comes to a conclusion. And we can compare sector times again between Slater, Porter and Robinson. Well, actually, they're going to be side by side for 2nd place because that's Robinson up the inside. They were fractionally quicker than the leader in Sector 3, but that little side-by-side exchange might have lost them a bit of time through Brooklands Corner. Into Luffield, got to be careful here. That could have been an orchestrated move if they've sort of figured out that Leo is maybe slightly quicker than Mikey. Maybe it's better to have him out in front. Parmovsky and Schwarzer, meanwhile, wheel to wheel, with Mackenzie Douglas, the blue and black number 24 car, right behind. Then Charlie Hart is next. Charlie Hart really losing ground on that lap. 4 places lost for the number 50 car. As there, Parmovsky and Schwarzer debate 5th position. Parmovsky on the inside going in, retains the place, but then drifts out wide on the exit. Fastest lap of the race, by the way, set by Leo Robinson, but he was only a 10th quicker than Slater because of that little side-by-side battle through Brooklyn. Speaking of side-by-side, Schwarzer back ahead of Parmovsky now through Beckett's corner. Brilliant racing this. Schwarzer gets sideways through the long left, and that was almost beyond the point of no return, but he just gathered it together. They head out onto the hanger straight again with Parmovsky now in behind. And again, these two elite motorsport teammates not really working together, are they, to try and chase after the R Racing Brigade, who are all now running at pretty much exactly the same pace through Sector 1 at least. All with Tom Spragg, who's one of the few drivers on the grid not representing R Racing or Elite Motorsport. He's run by PrepTech UK. And, he and Henry Jocelyn teammates within that team this weekend, but Jocelyn a little bit further down the order for the time being. Not much further back though, he's on the tail end of this group actually, is Jocelyn, the number 26. There, number 16, that is Tom Spragg. Tom Tom Sprague's got Luca Hopkinson trying to find a way past him. We're on board with Sprague now, turning into Abbey Corner, and I don't think we'll be able to turn him properly because there in the mirror, look, you can see Hopkinson committing to the move, and he slides on by. Sprague now sits back in behind. Does he try and have another go into Village? Well, no, because Hopkinson pulls to the right-hand side of the road to defend. Snatches a break slightly, backs the car into the corner. Really throw these cars around there. They may be rear-wheel drive, but they're not super powerful, so you can be reasonably aggressive on the controls in some ways, but because they're not very powerful, you've got to keep that momentum up, and that requires a certain smoothness in driving style. So Tom Sprague pointing at Luca Hopkinson to say, let's work together, not battle each other, but I'm not convinced Luca will have seen that or cared. But at least that tells us that Tom Sprague is not likely to dive up the inside into Brooklands. Indeed, he doesn't. Great locking there from somebody in front, not sure who. They're all still there as they round Brooklands and Luffield Corner. Now, what is this gap going to do at the front of the field? It came down by a tenth on the last lap to 1 second. Slater to Robinson. I don't think it's come down by a huge amount this time, maybe a tenth or so as they cross the line. Well, almost identical, actually half a tenth quicker for the race leader, but Reza Saburathan has just set the fastest lap of the race in 4th position, so a 2:39.9 was 3 tenths quicker than the leader and about 7 tenths quicker than Mikey Porter ahead of him. There, Luca Hopkinson up the inside of Chase Fernandez now through Copse Corner. He goes through. Can Tom Sprague take advantage of that? He's going to try, but there's nowhere really to go into Maggots and Beckett's. Had the run, had the momentum, but nowhere to place his car really. Has to back off the throttle, and that's always a frustration for the drivers. Wasted bit of an opportunity there, but now the opportunity might come again because it really looks like Fernandez is struggling with the balance of the car. Drifts wide over the curb, but just gets across in front to defend from Tom Sprague, who will try to find a gap either to the outside or the inside. There is a gap on the inside if he wants it here, but they're both probably gaining slightly on Hopkinson ahead, who now has to move to defend and almost clatters into the side there of Chase Fernandez's car under braking. Fernandez drifting out wide. Sprague will now try to take advantage as they drop down the hill. Again, we run on board with the number 16 car. We're on the outside line. There is a car somewhere to our left there. You can see it from the external shot. And Chase Fernandez will stay in front, but again, the rear of that number 90 car stepping out on him. And Sprague looks to try and get the better exit from Club Corner, nip up the inside through the second apex. Fernandez doesn't know whether he can close the door or not. He probably could have done, but a wider line actually gives him a slightly better exit from the turn anyway. So, through Abbey Corner again. Oh, and there's been a spin, has there? Was that a car off in front of them? There was certainly some tyre smoke, I think. Was that someone off the road or not? I'm not entirely sure, but there was a big black mark on the road. Quite a bit of tyre smoke. Yes, there's definitely tyre smoke in the background, isn't there? Might not have been a spin, but somebody had a moment, I think. Tom Sprague still trying to get around the outside of Chase Fernandez. And, oh no, there was an issue, and that's Mackenzie Douglas who's been off. So there was a car spinning at Abbey Corner. Wasn't seeing things, and, well, Hopkinson may be seeing his pit crew fairly shortly because that car will need some repairs to the bodywork. Unless it falls off all by itself, otherwise the clerk of the course will call him in to get it dealt with. Right, on this lap, the lead gap is, I think, creeping. Well, no, not really. It's second, third and fourth that are getting themselves together, actually, because Reza Saburathan is putting in some more really rapid sector times. So whilst Freddie Slater will still retain about a 1 second cushion at the front of the pack, second, third and fourth couldn't be a lot closer, really. Saburathan, the fourth of the R Racing cars in that group. Charlie Hart for Elite Motorsport is in seventh position, sorry. That's Schwarzer 5th, Parmovsky 6th, Hart 7th, Hopkinson 8th, Fernandez 9th, Tom Sprague in 10th position. Parmovsky setting the fastest lap this time with a good slipstream there from Hugo Schwarzer, and you can see those two starting to close in on the leading group as well. They were the two quickest cars on the track pretty much that time, were Alicia Parmovsky and Charlie Hart. Through Maggots, Beckett's they go. Saburathan hard at work now as he gets a good exit onto the Hanger Straight out of Chapel Corner. Can he convert that run into a move down at Stowe? You can see him visibly closing in the toe. Looks to the inside. He's signalling to the inside as if he wants to be let through on the inside, but I don't think that's going to happen. And so Reza will stay exactly where he is. There's no reason for Mikey Porter to let him go. And I do find it amusing when drivers make hand gestures like that sort of aimed at the car in front of them. There's half a chance that the car behind might see you waving, but the driver ahead is not going to be looking inside your cockpit to see what sign language you're trying to give them. I would say on this lap the lead gap's coming down. Yeah, 2/10 down in sector 1, and the closer they get, the more of a slipstream they will receive from Freddie Slater. Middle sector pretty similar, but in the speed trap, tellingly, at the end of that Lewis Hamilton straight, second place man Leo Robinson was a full 1 mile an hour faster than Freddie Slater in a one-make category. A mile an hour can make a big difference. So that is the effect of that slipstream. And then he runs a bit wide through Village, has to move to cover the inside line against Mikey Porter into the loop. And again, that's teammates not really working together particularly well. If Robinson knew that Porter wasn't going to throw it up the inside there, they could have both taken the racing line through the loop and both come out of the corner quickly. As it is, they've delayed each other, and so in the third sector on the lap, they have likely lost out now to Sarurathan, the race leader. Sarurathan there gesticulating at Hugo Schwarzer, again telling him not to attack. Well, Hugo's not going to listen to that, and he slides up the inside through Brooklands corner. So Hugo Schwarzer into 4th place, flames spitting from the back of the Elite Motorsport car as he comes through Luffield corner. 9 minutes of the race still to go. And is that lead gap still going down? Well, yes, almost certainly it is now, because that third sector was actually still a 10th quicker for Robinson, despite the defensive moment at the loop. And at the end of the lap, he's taken half a second out of the leader. Schwarzer sets the fastest lap at 39.1, which was a full 1.4 seconds quicker than the race leader. So now they're all within slipstreaming range of the leader. That last sort of half a second or so will evaporate very quickly as a result, and we're going to have ourselves a 6-car shootout for the victory over the final handful of laps. Through Maggotts and Beckett's they go. You can see immediately upon getting within sort of 7 or 8 tenths or so, Robinson's able to draft up onto the tail of Freddie Slater, who's done his best to try and escape in this race, but just hasn't quite been able to do so. So now, proper Ginetta Junior racing again as they head down the Hangar Straight. Is Robinson close enough this time to try and make a move for the lead? I don't think he quite is. Hugo Schwarzer is, though, close enough to make a move for third. Goes to the outside of Mikey Porter here towards Stowe. Porter also watching his mirrors for his teammate Sarurathan, who's coming through on the inside and might still gain a place out of all of this, because Schwarzer surely is going to get hung out to dry. Sarurathan sideways just about gathers it together, but he was having to hold a tighter line there to try and get up the inside of Schwarzer, and still tried to carry the normal amount of speed through the corner. More steering lock, more speed meant that the rear of the car stepped out, but now he's got a great run through the middle part of Club as the two in front sort of tripped over each other. And Schwarzer might finally be able to move back into this 4th position, runs out to the edge of the road, which tells me that he has made the move. And so Mikey Porter stays third, but Reza Sarurathan back into 4th, making it, well, briefly, an R Racing 1, 2, 3, 4 again, but now the Elite Motorsport teammates ganging up on them. Alicia Palmovsky and Hugo Schwarzer, remember, are teammates. And in this style of racing, again, I made the NASCAR reference earlier on, but it really is similar to that in that teammates can massively, massively help each other when you get this sort of slipstreaming pack racing. Sarurathan on the inside, surely not. There was never space up the inside of Mikey Porter and Hugo Schwarzer. Thankfully, the contact is minimal. It's actually Sarurathan who loses out, and Alicia Palmovsky goes around the outside of him, and that is Schwarzer exiting stage right. Palmovsky trying to leave him some space as he comes back on the road. It's all getting a bit physical. Here comes Leo Robinson for the race lead, though. And Leo Robinson to the outside down at Brooklands corner, not able to make the move stick. So Slater hangs on. Robinson second, Porter third, Schwarzer 4th, Sarurathan in 5th, and Palmovsky in 6th position. Any one of them could still win the race, but they're starting now to get to the business end of the race, aren't they? And you can just tell that the gloves are off, sleeves rolled up, and elbows are well and truly out now. Back on board with Sarurathan, trying to get the overrun here on Hugo Schwarzer, and actually trying to get the side draft look, trying to force some air off the front of his car into the wheel arches of Schwarzer's car to the right to slow him down. And that's another oval racing technique that Reza Sarurathan used to good effect there, but he slides out wide through Copse corner. Has he got the move covered? He's drifting back to the right. Oh, no, maybe. Yes, he has got the move done. And once again, it's an R Racing 1, 2, 3, 4. Sarurathan's car, though, looking more and more leery by the lap as it slides its way through. So does Porter's car ahead of him. But again, you don't want to understeer in these cars. You want to be able to slide the car, drift the car through the corners, keep that average corner speed up so that you make up for the relative lack of horsepower. Mackenzie Douglas, by the way, after his off at Abbey a few laps ago, he's retired to the pit lane, so 18 of them still running. But Freddie Slater and Leo Robinson perhaps starting to break away now from this fight for third place. Mikey Porter coming over all defensive against his teammate Riza Sarurathan. Schwarzer and Palmovsky, can they gang up on these two? They're outnumbered slightly, aren't they, the elite drivers? But if they work together, they could get at least one of them onto the podium. They both go to the outside as the R-Racing drivers defend the inside, and Schwarzer might go around the outside of both of them. Brilliant driving. He's got one of them. He's got the inside against the other, but Sarurathan sees it coming. 4 wide. They go through club corner. There isn't the space. Something has to give. There is contact between the two teammates, but miraculously, they all come out the other side, and Alicia Palmovsky might find herself on the podium now. She's up the inside of Mikey Porter towards Abbey Corner, and I think she will go through at the quick right-hander. Yes, she does. Alicia Palmovsky back into a podium position, and Riza Sarurathan finds himself once again at the back of the group. Hugo Schwarzer in front of us, defending the inside. He goes up the middle, or tries to anyway. And Alicia Palmovsky, right place, right time, but she read that situation beautifully well to move herself through into third place. They well and truly lost touch with the top two now, though. So it's a straight-up fight between Freddie Slater and Leo Robinson, whilst the third place battle will be settled amongst these 4. A number of drivers being warned about track limits. We've actually got a few who are showing us having penalties on the timing screen. Charlie Hart is one, Felix Livesey another, and AD Robinson the third. Up the inside goes Schwarzer at Brooklands Corner. And this might help his teammate Palmovsky to break away slightly from these 3 if they running side by side. Some brilliant racing this, though. This is why we love Ginetta Juniors. Why I was promising you some good racing here from the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Sarurathan up the inside. He's got a small overlap here against his teammate Mikey Porter as they flash past the pits. Hugo Schwarzer is latched onto his rear bumper as well, giving him a push. And look at that little bit of contact that they had on the club has dislodged the front bodywork on Sarurathan's car. That will be a concern. He's got to hang on for 2 more laps. The bodywork on these cars almost designed in a way to deter them from making too much contact, but I don't think it's working particularly, and that won't be helping the aerodynamics on the 78 car either. So Schwarzer and Porter will surely be looking to try and drag past him down the hanger straight this time around. Penultimate lap of the race then. One of those races you don't really want to end, although Freddie Slater will be grateful to see the checkered flag, because Leo Robinson is still only half a second behind him, well within slipstreaming range. Is he biding his time, waiting for the final lap, or is this as good as it gets for him? In the background, we've got Luca Hopkinson running in 7th, Charlie Hart behind him, but at least being warned about track limits, maybe even has a penalty coming his way. Stowe again, Palmovsky not yet able to escape in 3rd as they plunge downhill. An old airfield circuit, you imagine Silverstone to be fairly flat, but there is a bit of undulation to be had as Hugo Schwarzer throws it up the inside of Riza Sarurathan at club corner as the outside line through the 2nd park gets squeezed out wide. They lean on each other as Schwarzer tries to get back on the road, and well, Mikey Porter's never had a more easy overtake in his life. That was a really fortunate bit of positioning for his car, really. And Schwarzer and Sarurathan banging into each other delayed them to the point that he was able to drive past the pair of them. Through Abbey Farm, onto the brakes now into Village on this penultimate lap. And there is a danger here that Hopkinson and Hart will catch them before the flag, because they're really starting to take lumps out of each other, these 3. Palmovsky's escaping from them. And I think there is a chance to, well, in fact, forget a chance, they have caught them now, haven't they? Luca Hopkinson definitely has. Luca, another one of the R-Racing drivers. And it's a top 8 at the moment, exclusively made up of either R-Racing or Elite Motorsport competitors. Right, here for the race lead now, Freddie Slater having to get defensive because Leo Robinson there was ducking and diving in his mirrors. Perhaps just trying to distract the race leader, perhaps trying to sell a dummy in the same way that Dan Harper did in the closing stages of the British GT race earlier on to get the lead. Well, maybe Leo Robinson was watching that and learnt a thing or two. Now to the final turn they come then across the line. Final lap begins, 0.4 of a second the gap at the head of the field. Robinson definitely close enough. If he gets a good run through Maggots and Beckett's, he could definitely challenge down the hanger straight. There goes Palmovsky 3rd. This is the fight for 4th. Mikey Porter has it at the moment. Hugo Schwarzer wants it. And Riza Sarurathan looking to pick up the pieces if it goes wrong. So too his teammate Luca Hopkinson behind. On board with Summerthan, that is Schwarzer looking to the right-hand side of the road as they head into Maggots. And that will be the inside for the kink at Beckett's, which is a full commitment turn. And there just isn't really the space to go side by side. They make it stick just about. Schwarzer squeezes back in line, gets the back of the car sideways. Out wide goes Summerthan. That gives Hopkinson a run on him. Hopkinson and Porter now both being shown with exclamation marks next to their names on the timing screen. So whether that means penalties or just warnings, I'm not so sure. There is actually a note to tell me that they've been given a penalty yet. We'll have to see what happens when the flag comes out. Bit of touchy-feely stuff there between the two teammates as Summerthan's front bodywork gets looser by the corner. And Mikey Porter now gets himself to the front of this group. Down the hill we go, side by side for the race lead now though, and Leo Robinson to the outside of Freddie Slater. Is he going to make that one stick? No, Slater hangs on. I thought that we might see a bit of activity at Stoke Corner from these two. That was absolutely the case, and now running out of overtaking opportunities. This has got disaster written all over it, hasn't it, this group, as Summerthan ducks and dives. He's been overtaken by Charlie Hart now, but gets back up the inside. Schwarzer gets elbowed out wide at Club. Liberal use of track limits from Hugo there as he tried to get himself back in line and immediately tries to convert that into an attack on Charlie Hart, who is also doing the same thing to Reza Summerthan ahead of him. They both go in tight to Abbey Corner, so Schwarzer goes right round the outside. Brilliantly committed driving, keeps it within track limits that time as well, and makes the move stick. Right, one more sector of the final lap to go, and realistically, one more overtaking opportunity. Oh, half the grid are now being confirmed as getting 5-second penalties, and one of those drivers is Freddie Slater. Freddie Slater, Mikey Porter, Luca Hopkinson, Charlie Hart, Chase Fernandez, Finn Harrison, Freddie Allen, Eddie Robinson and Felix Livesey and Brea Anglis all being given track limits penalties. So this actually doesn't matter a huge amount, but I don't think that Leo Robinson knows it. He goes from the outside to the inside. He barges his way past Freddie Slater, but I think it's damaged the right front corner. Has it? Can he get through Luffield Corner? Slater comes back at him, rubbing up the inside line. He will go back through, but a 5-second penalty awaits for Freddie Slater for exceeding track limits, and one of the few drivers not to have a penalty is Leo Robinson. So from second place, Leo Robinson, he might right now feel a little aggrieved at that, but he's still going to claim the race victory. Parmovsky will be second because she doesn't have a penalty either. Can Slater hang on to third? I think he probably will, because most of the next group of cars have track limits penalties. So Slater third, Schwarzer fourth, Summerthan fifth, Porter sixth, Hopkinson seventh, Josselin gets eighth, Hart gets ninth, Fernandez 10th, and that was not the order in which they came across the line, because I don't think I've ever seen that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the 19 cars on the grid. Well, 18 of them were running actually at the flat because we'd lost Mackenzie Douglas earlier on. So over half the finishers received a 5-second penalty at the end of that race. I mean, you could sort of see it coming, because every time they went through Stowe and Club, there was at least 2 or 3 of them running wide. And in the closing stages of that race, I think any thought of track limits went well out of their heads. But it is Leo Robinson who becomes the first person not called Freddie Slater to win a round of the Michelin Ginetta Junior Championship in 2023, and he does it in fine style. He got the lead with an aggressive move down at Brooklands Corner. Now that's the only thing he's got to hope now, is that he doesn't end up getting in trouble for that. It was an unnecessary move, but of course he had no way of knowing, because the confirmation of the penalty only appeared on the timing screen with less than a lap to go, so long after they'd gone past the pits. So there was no way that Leo Robinson could have known that Freddie Slater had the penalty, and so he felt obliged to make the move. He did make the move, there was contact, and well, in the end, Freddie Slater fought straight back at the next corner. Freddie still gets third place though, saved by the fact that the next group of drivers had penalties too. Hugo Schwarzer was one of the few drivers on the not naughty list. So he gets fourth ahead of Reza Swerth, and there is confirmation, provisionally at least, of that result. Leo Robinson the winner, Alicia Parmovsky in second, Freddie Slater third despite winning on the road, with Hugo Schwarzer in fourth position. And at the top 5 completed by one of our onboard camera drivers, Reza Swerth. And then it was Mikey Porter 6th, Luca Hopkinson 7th, Josselin in 8th, Hart in 9th, and Chase Fernandez completing the top 10 ahead of Tom Spragg. Then it was Finn Harrison, Freddie Allen, Edu Robinson, then the 15th place went the way of Harry Moss, 16th for Felix Livesey, 17th Brea Anglis, 18th for Holly Mile, and Mackenzie Douglas, the only non-finisher, remarkably, after what was at times a bruising 6th round of the Michelin Ginetta Junior Championship. But that spin into the gravel at Abbey, unfortunately, put him out of the race. So, fantastic racing. It all got a little bit messy towards the end. Track limits penalties adding to the confusion. And I don't know whether even now Leo Robinson will know that he has claimed the race victory, but that is exactly what he has done. And as he pulls into the pit lane, he'll be given the good news by the team. I mean, our racing will be frustrated in a way that they lost their stranglehold on that race, though, and that Parmovsky managed to get an Elite Motorsport car onto the podium. There is Leo Robinson. Now, this is where the confusion begins, because he's being waved into the race winner's parking spot, and he's probably thinking, well, hang on, what are you doing? I didn't win that race. Photographer's waiting and ready to get the winning moment as he gets out of the car, but it might be a look of bemusement as he gets out. And there we go, now he's been told, and he gets the hug from the team, and Leo Robinson gets his first victory of the championship. So, a dramatic sixth round of the Michelin Ginetta Junior Championship, the third race of the weekend here at Silverstone, and the only one to take place in dry conditions. At the start of the race, as had been the case in the previous two races, Freddie Slater wasn't able to convert pole position into the early race lead, but this time he wouldn't have such an easy time getting back out in front. Tom Spragg had a grandstand view of some of the elbows out racing going into Stowe Corner. That was tame, though, compared to some of the things that we would see later on in the race. It looked for a while as though Freddie Slater was going to lead home a 1-2-3-4 for our racing. In the mid part of the race, he did manage to break the toe, but the two Elite Motorsport teammates of Hugo Schwarzer and Alicia Parmovsky were looming large behind. Teammates at play at the loop as Reza Swerthen got into the side of one of his R-Racing teammates. Hugo Schwarzer was on the outside as the rubbing started to intensify in the closing stages. Alicia Parmovsky on one part of the race, managing to go from 6th into 3rd in one fell swoop. This was the move as the three drivers ahead all held each other up and ran wide. Parmovsky managed to get up the inside of the lot of them. She was also one of only a handful of drivers not to be handed a 5-second track limits penalty. Freddie Slater was one of those who had a penalty, but Leo Robinson didn't know, and on the final lap he launched an aggressive move up the inside of Brooklands. Contact was made not once but twice, and eventually Freddie Slater got back through. He led them at the line, but after the penalty, it was a first victory of the season for Leo Robinson, who will head to Donington Park, hoping for more of the same.